Are we doing any other indicators again?
You know, you guys just did such a good job yesterday with covering everything. You know.
Okay, if so, I'm going to grab them.
Yeah, no, because Lynn just said yesterday she just wanted us to
recap on the lesson.
Recap on the
and
lesson.
Where we're going with it. Okay.
Right, right.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, so we already talked about what the past, so we want to go over the links to the future. So what's the next step from this lesson?
Yeah, and let's connect it to the entry points. This is entry point 3
Okay.
of 12.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay, and we are rolling. So go ahead and just introduce you guys, yourselves again, and then sort of tell us about class today, and then just maybe mention that you guys taught another math class yesterday.
Okay. I'll go first. This is my team partner, Mr. Try again. This is my teaching partner, Mr. Doetch. We teach first grade at Alice Taylor Elementary School.
And this is my amazing team partner, Tammy Falk, and we've been team teaching now for 4 years.
This lesson was a follow-up from a lesson we taped yesterday, and we're again building on that overarching theme of our lesson being fact power.
Okay.
Sorry.
And good. Let's do that again.
The kids.
That was funny.
That is such a bad habit. Okay. Did I do it through the whole thing?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Try again. Hi, this is my amazing team partner, Ryan Doetch. We teach first grade at Alice Taylor Elementary School.
And this is the most incredible teacher in the United States. This is Tammy Falk, and we've been teaching together for 4 years.
The lesson you just saw was a follow-up for a lesson we started yesterday, and it's in that overarching theme of building fact power with first graders. And this lesson is entry point 3, or our third opportunity for the children to practice fact power using different lessons. And it is, I lost it. Doggone it. You do that part. Okay, I'm going to keep swiveling. Okay, we already introduced ourselves. That's done. Use the first one before he said the most amazing teacher, because that's really embarrassing.
Okay,
go.
You're sending me to meet the president on Monday. You made Mr. Dutch Day, so
okay.
you know what? I don't want to hear it.
Okay.
So anyway, this was lesson, I'll start again.
Okay.
So this was lesson 3 of a sequence of lessons, and so the students today then were working on another entry point into fact power. So yesterday in the lesson before, we spent time on looking at basically looking at equivalent names as a way to learn fact power. And we also looked at using manipulatives and strategy in the first lesson. So we don't expect mastery of this lesson today. It's just another entry point for the students who didn't make connections on day 1 and day 2. And we're going to continue that sequence for the rest of the unit then, where if, here's another way to look at fact fluency then. Because by the end of first grade, we want students to have the automaticity, which is being able to recall the facts, and in our teaching world we call that fact recall. But our most important part is that students have the manipulatives and the understanding then of what fact recall is. That way, when they have the fact recall, they can say, because I have strategies and I understand what I'm doing then. And we know that with the Common Core, by the end of second grade then, subtraction and addition to the sums of 20 is going to be fluently, where students have to do this through fact recall. And so we're just building those steps on there. And to make sure that we're engaging all of our learners then, we have what they call entry points then. So here's one way to look at fact power. Today was the third way, so that way students are looking at different ways into fact power, and they find the one that fits best with them then.
They have 8 more lessons in this unit with that same overarching theme for different entry points to, again, get that fact power in addition and subtraction. Today was the first day where they had to generate those subtraction facts using the addition facts as a starting point. And that was a struggle. That's going to take us some more time. So we have 8 more lessons to work on that.
And we're going to use different modalities then too throughout our lessons then. So the lessons coming up then is we're actually going to use the ruler and the centimeter then, where students are going to measure objects then and then add the numbers together so that way they can look at fact power. We're also going to use different types of coin combinations where they're going to take the coins, put them together so they can see this is another way or another tool that uses fact power. And then we're also going to look at clocks then, how we add 5-minute increments to a clock then, and how we use hour increments and minute increments, but it's all based upon fact power. So then at the end of the unit then, they've seen fact power through equivalent names, they've seen it through finding the sums, they've seen it through looking at name collections, and they've seen it through clocks, and they've seen it through coins. So that way they have a balance then, and they can choose which entry point they want to look at. And by having so many entry points and by constantly going back to fact power, by the end of the unit then, students will have multiple ways to think of how do I connect best to the learning? And that is through fact power, but whatever tools they need to use to get there then. And that's what the part of the Common Core that we've changed over the years then, is that making sure then not just one entry point, but they can choose the entry point they want that's best for them.
They get experience applying those skills, using money or using the equivalent names, and in that way they're able to master it in the best modality for them. Sorry, I was spinning again.
I'm just gonna put my leg right there.
Okay. Do we have any? I don't know what the rest of the questions are.
You know, I'm just going to kind of just
Bounce
jump
around.
over.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do you think the students handled this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics of it? And how do you know?
Let me process that for a minute.
Okay.
So, will you say that one more time?
Understand the mathematics.
Sure.
Of
Understanding the mathematics of the lesson, and then how do we know?
Okay. So we looked at the domino.
Okay.
We took record from that.
So the first part, we started the lesson with the introduction, with using fact recall, and then backing up with a strategy. Then every student was able to do that. Then they had multiple strategies to do that. And the domino, then that's where we saw some struggling. Was I have to look at three numbers where students wanted to start. Some kids were introducing equivalency names then, you know, and then some students were doing they were just writing a third number because they wanted to add a third add-in then. And so it was like looking back at, okay, just let these three. So it's just because it was a concept that's brand new to them, then it's something we'll continue on. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
So one thing that we looked at the lesson is, do the students understand the concept of the lesson? When we looked at the first part of the lesson, which was using the mental math and using strategies and the real-world tools then to connect their learning and to justify it, that part of the lesson we saw students had immediate reactions to it and feedback from each other because they had the tools, they were able to check their answers. When we started part 2 of the lesson then, which is looking at the fact families then, the students then, there were a couple of them who picked it up right off the bat, but a couple of them had started building a misconception of, I want to earn a third add-in or I want to use a third number. So that's when we went back and said, okay, is that fact then that you created part of this fact family? And our student at the end of the lesson then, he tied it all back together and he made the connection, which was a fact family can only be those three parts of the number. And this is a beginning lesson, it's a beginning concept, but again, we're going to be practicing this throughout the unit though. But our expectation is by the end of the unit, they'll have those connections, but this was just another entry point and another beginning lesson then for that concept.
In looking at the students I was working with, they were able to do equivalent names, and they still wanted to continue equivalent names even though they were restricted to just the three numbers from that specific domino. So they were adding more equivalent names without staying in the restrictions of just those three numbers. So that piece from yesterday stuck with them. This new piece with the domino and knowing when they started on that subtraction piece, which number do I start with for my subtraction? That was a struggle for them. So that was notations that I made throughout that lesson, so I know who needs to have another entry point to that, and who I need to watch on the next lesson to see, did they pick it up at that entry point? Or do we still need to watch them again and see if they get it on the next entry point? And they, hopefully by the end of this overarching theme of the unit, they'll have at least one of those lessons where that skill stuck.
And then I had my checklist too, where I was walking around checking the kids who needed support or who understood it. And 35 of them understood what they're doing, and all 35 of them had it correct. So then the great part is that the lesson tomorrow then, they're going to be looking at dominoes with bigger numbers on them. And they're going to notice that too, that some of the facts and dominoes that are double numbers, let's say 5 and 5, those will only have fact families of 2 families and not 4, because it's going to be, even if I use the associative property, 5 at 5, and if I turn around, it's still 5 at 5. So they're going to make that connection that not every number will have a duplicate number if it's a doubled number then. And then we'll look back too at the associative property and the commutative property of moving those numbers around and combining them together to see what will happen with those facts then.
All right, excellent. So let's see, would you like to comment on any of the submitted student work?
I need to see it.
Yeah.
All right.
The ones from yesterday, or the one we're going to submit today?
The ones for today.
From today, okay.
So this one they got really quick. Everyone got that right.
Yeah, I have a couple exceptions on that.
Okay.
But I pulled them to my
And
table.
those are the kids you put, we can talk about, that's why you
Yeah,
pulled those
okay.
then. Okay.
Okay.
So when we were doing the math message in which where students had to find the total of dots and they had to find the missing unknowns on the dots then. So that's when we were walking around, and again too, we had our clipboard because adequate progress was at this time where they could do all 3 of them and they could use a strategy or they could use a physical manipulative of their choice then to be able to problem solve or to be able to solve it then.
And that's when we went around to look at that task that they completed, those students who struggled with it, needed some support with that, those were the students again that were pulled for a smaller group instruction.
And then when we looked at the actual math journals then where students were creating their own number models then, that's when again we were walking around then. That's when again 35 students had it correct, but I noticed that 2 of them weren't understanding the concept of it and they were building a misconception. So that's when I asked them to join Mrs. Falk's table where she could spend more time going individually with them or going deeper or using more of the tools then to help build the or reconstruct the misconception then. And it was nice to see that it was only 2 that time. That just was a quick go over, take her tools over, and Ms. Falk was able then to jump in and just kind of build where where she left off or look at the misconception and then reconstruct understanding them through the use of conceptual tools. And
that's where I saw again they were using equivalent names rather than sticking with just the 3 digits that were allowed for that domino.
Cool. Well, I think that's it. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It worked out really nicely.
Yeah.
I need to go home now.
I have another class.
Oh, you have Shaw
coming
Middle
up.
School.
Yeah, over at Shaw.
Middle school. Ugh.
Middle school.
They need